If you're like me, which in this case means you spent a lot of time looking at sports things on the internet, you may have come across this video a while back from YouTuber Anthony Ferraro.
I'm about to watch the entire game through my fingers and my ears.
Ferraro was trialing a device from a tech company called OneCourt, and rather than try and explain how it works myself, I'll just let him do it.
It uses real-time data with haptic feedback and audio to let me know exactly what's going on in real time. Status button that tells me the score, how much time's left, all what's going on. All is vibrating in real time and I can follow it on the court here with my hands.
This video has over 3 million views on YouTube and does a pretty great job of telling the world about what this device does all on its own. But because I can't help myself, I really wanted to know how we got here. Like, what is this company? How does this technology actually work? How easy is it to use? That kind of stuff. And our story begins in 2021 at the University of Washington with a guy named Jared Mace. But before we get to him and his company, we've got to talk about the problem that they were trying to solve. Historically, sports venues have not been overly friendly places for people with disabilities, visible or otherwise. The shift towards making them more so really starts with two big pieces of legislation: the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, in 1990. Incidentally, these bills are both classified as civil rights bills, with the implication being that accessibility, whether it's in a sports stadium or otherwise, is a fundamental civil right as an American, which, just to be clear, it is. But all of that to say that if your building was built before the 1970s, there's a pretty good chance that there weren't any disability measures included in its construction. And it would be very tedious and time-consuming to go through all the teams and stadiums that have had issues with ADA compliance over the years. Plus, I don't want this video to just turn into me roasting them the whole time. But even in my home state, 3 of the biggest stadiums in Alabama, Legion Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium, and Jordan-Hare Stadium, all fall short of ADA compliance. And at this point, you may be wondering what all of those old buildings without wheelchair ramps have to do with that one device. But one of the main ideas here is that all of that is actually connected. Even as newer venues did start to include more accommodations for disabled fans, even more so when the ADA design standards were updated in 2010, invisible disabilities and sensory disabilities weren't explicitly included in that language. They were protected by the ADA itself, but venues were not explicitly required to make space for them in quite the same way. And that's important because that's a pretty big group. That category includes fans with PTSD, autism, agoraphobia, epilepsy, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including blindness. And hopefully you start to see some of the problem here. That category is much broader and more varied, and often requires highly specialized tools and strategies to address each specific condition, which a team or league may or may not be able to develop on their own. And that is how we arrive back here, with a device that was developed by a team of recent college grads in Seattle and is now in use by teams all across the country. To get a little bit more background on this technology and how it's helping fans, I reached out to Bree Fraser, OneCourt's program manager. Because while this seemed like a pretty interesting tool that could potentially make sports a lot more accessible, I still had some questions about it. I did want to ask how it works.
Yeah. A fan side, they show up to an arena, they check out the device from guest services, it's already turned on. So all they need to do is sit down at their seat, plug in the audio jack, and then it's in live game mode automatically. So they're going to place their hands on the surface of the device. It has a tactile overlay. So for every sport, it has a different outline of which court it is. So for basketball, it's going to have the hoops, the center line, the three-point line, all those important details. And then there's over 200 haptic motors underneath the surface.
Bree used a term there that I want to focus in on for a second, and that's haptics. The word haptic really just means something pertaining to your sense of touch, but in this context, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. Think about being at a concert. If the bass drops, you don't just hear it through your ears. You feel it, literally, in your skin and bones. You feel the vibration go through you. The low frequency of the bass uses your body as a resonator, like a drum or the body of a guitar. And as that frequency changes, you can feel that too, and shifts in those dynamics can help convey information. Your phone does the exact same thing. Video game controllers do this to help realize different types of collisions, like a ball being fouled off versus being hit for a home run. Those vibrations mimic what it would actually be like to make that type of contact. It makes the whole experience feel more immersive and better. And that's exactly the thought behind the way the OneCourt device works.
We vary those vibrations to signal different parts of the play. So we might change the pattern of the vibration to signal a 2-point shot versus a 3-point shot. You're going to feel a buzz buzz versus a buzz 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 for a 3-point shot. It's a little hard to describe, but the haptics of a basketball being dribbled and passed feel different than a shot, because we wanted to be able to show through haptics that the shot is kind of this aerial feeling of the ball flying through the air. So the haptics are a little bit softer versus when you have it dribbling or passing, they're a little bit more distinct. And so we changed the duration, the intensity, and the pattern of those vibrations.
Through the Wi-Fi in the venue, the OneCourt device is able to use data collected by the league to haptically represent what's going on the court or the field in real time. And that's cool enough on its own, but it's what it's doing for the people using it that I think is really important here.
By being able to track the game in real time, fans are now interpreting the game for themselves. So what I often hear, usually when I listen to the radio, I'm hearing an interpretation of someone else enjoying the game. Now I'm feeling the game in real time and making my own interpretation of the game. And so that could be heckling a call, like in baseball, we have the strike zone. And so a fan can feel if it was a ball or a strike, and they can heckle the umpire. Or if their favorite player misses a shot, they're like, shoot, like they missed the shot, and they know that in real time. So I think it's a huge jump in experience for fans.
To me, that personal element is what makes what OneCourt is trying to do so valuable. There are so many things that sighted people and people who generally experience sports in a quote-unquote normal way have no idea that other people who don't fall into that category don't know. Like in that Anthony Ferraro video, he makes a comment about not realizing how fast the players move around the court. People like me take that kind of thing for granted, and devices like this can help bridge those gaps in experience in a number of different ways.
Some anecdotes that I've heard is I never knew what a football field felt like. Like one fan realized through a Super Bowl watch party we did not this year, but last year, was that not only can football move left to right across the yard lines, but it actually goes up and down across the field. And so for them, they had always envisioned football as this one-dimensional moving back and forth. And so there's this whole new dynamic of like, whoa, a football player can run from the left and right side of the field. And so there's also this educational or learning component about what we're doing of like, oh, that's what a football field feels like. Or like, whoa, soccer fields are really big in comparison to how small the player and the ball are. So I think that's also been really fun to expose fans to a brand new part of the game that they didn't know.
When people are coming in, because you mentioned like on the UX side, when people are coming in giving you feedback, like what are those conversations like? What are the things that they're saying? You know, this could be faster, this could be more intuitive, like those kinds of things.
It's really varied, the type of feedback we've been looking for / we've received. A recent example that I received was a fan live at a game. His name's Hank. He's 11 years old from Portland, and he is such a big Portland fan. I'm sure many other sports fans can attest to this, is when your team scores, you want to stand up. Like I grew up going to hockey games in Vancouver, Canada, so I'm a Canucks fan. And my dad taught me, every time your team scored, you stand up and cheer. And so Hank wanted to stand up and cheer, but he has this device on his lap and he doesn't want to drop it, of course. So some feedback he gave us was, we really need a strap on the device so that I can stand, cheer, put my hands in the air, and then sit back down on the device and go flying 3 seats to my left.
Sometimes the gaps in experience can be bridged by something as simple as a strap. Other times it's having to find a way to portray quick changes of possession in a game like soccer, which turns out was kind of hard, but they figured it out. It can also be something like having a good and informative status button, which they learned was important from one of their trial users checking theirs more than 600 times in a single game. But in all of those situations, no matter what the feedback is, the first step to making it work is to listen. When you guys are going into these conversations initially with leagues, with teams, what's the communication like? What's I don't want to say the pitch necessarily, but how do you explain how did you explain what the product was and why it was important?
We try our best to center the voices of fans. So as much as we can pitch and give our perspective as a company, we definitely want to center community voices. And then I think the big message is, let's work together to expand the game. We know that there's people being left out of this live environment and live experience right now. And this is a really tangible way to help bridge that gap. Oftentimes we're pitching to different verticals in an organization. Sometimes it's marketing that it ends up sticking with because they want to bring in new fans. Sometimes it's the community arm because they might already have relationships with blind and low vision organizations. And so they're like, great, we can strengthen those relationships. With the Portland Trailblazers, it was customer insights and data that was actually innovating on the cusp of innovation when it comes to fan experience. And so this ties right into that because we're utilizing data, positioning, event data to create this experience. So it really spans across verticals when you look at a sports organization. And I think that's the beauty of our collaboration, that it requires buy-in from so many different groups that by the time you get that, it's such a strong partnership. And we're communicating with so many different people in that organization that there's a lot of support and momentum to push the project forward.
What was the kind of we made it moment?
So I'll speak from my perspective. So I really work deeply in community, in fan engagement. And one concern that I had was, with OneCourt, as soon as a fan tries it, they love it. But the barrier for us is this is a new technology. Fans have never heard about it before. Some have written off live sports as an experience because it's been inaccessible in the past. All of a sudden, fast forward to today, the inbounds are organic. Like, people now know about OneCourt. A lot of that is due to the support from community organizations, from the leagues and teams themselves, but also viral videos like Anthony Ferraro's Instagram reel that brought you to us, right? Of just word getting out and people forwarding it to their friends who might be blind or low vision saying, hey, did you know about this? Like, this is happening. And so I think the fact that anyone, whether they're low vision or not, can get behind what we're doing helps us spread the word so that more blind and low vision fans will come.
This whole conversation is very important to me because as a person with a disability, specifically an invisible disability, I've been that person who's needed accommodations at a sporting event and had to go to guest services to try and get them. And I'll be honest with you, it can be a pretty confusing and even intimidating experience. But the fact that people know now that there's a device waiting for them that can make their whole experience more enjoyable and help them connect better with the team that they're there to support makes this whole discussion worth having as much as we need to. And look, just to be clear, this is not a commercial for OneCourt or some type of brand partnership kind of deal. They're not giving me any money to say all this. It's also important to point out that this is just one part of a much broader conversation around accessibility. Unfortunately, it's not like we can make haptic devices easy to access and then say, well, that's it, guys. Don't need to worry about people with disabilities anymore. They're good. We need more things like sensory rooms and signage around stadiums that's clear and easy to read, and online instructions that make sense and are easy to follow when you actually get into the stadium. We also need people to continue making some sacrifices. Bree told me that OneCourt has been able to remain free to its users because of the support they've gotten from teams and corporate sponsors. And that needs to continue, because we should be doing everything we can to make going to sporting events easier for people with disabilities, not harder. What stuck with me about that video of Anthony Ferraro is the genuine joy you see him experience as he gets to interact with his favorite team in a new way. He honestly does a better job of telling this story in like 72 seconds than I've managed to do in this entire video. I'm not mad about it. This is what it looks like when you get to experience sports for yourself rather than have someone else experience it for you. And it was all made possible by technology. And there will be more technologies like this coming soon, especially with the development of AI. And all of that is going to be pretty special, but not nearly as special as the real human moments that it will make possible. Hi everybody, my name is Will and I am officially back. It's been a while since I've been able to make one of these, but this is my channel, Student of the Game, where we make video essays about sports psychology and culture. I want to give a massive thank you to Bree and everyone at OneCourt for helping me out with this, because it isn't all that often that I get to talk about something that can actually improve the lives of actual people. Doing episodes about sports stuff is important too, but the conversation around disabilities and how we can accommodate them is much bigger than someone doing something on the field, even if that thing is amazing. I'll have my whole interview with Bree up on our Patreon soon, so if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to sign up. We'll have more conversations coming to you soon, but for now, it's time for me to say goodbye. See you next time.